What happens when one question becomes one of television's most original formats? Subway Takes with Kareem Rama transforms a ride on the New York City subway into unforgettable comedy and conversation, one take at a time. Now nominated for the Emmy for Outstanding Short-Form Comedy, Drama, or Variety Series. Watch Subway Takes on YouTube. Television has a new home. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Rich. This is the Prestige Junkie Podcast, and today it is part 2 of our fall preview series. Joining me again is my colleague, Chris Rosen, to talk about the indie labels of studios. There's got to be a better phrase for this. We're going to talk Searchlight, Focus, Sony Pictures Classics. And joining us for this round again, David Canfield of The Hollywood Reporter, favorite person to talk about awards with, who isn't Chris Rosen. It's so nice to have you back, David. Hello.
I love that label. Hi, Katie. Hi, Chris.
Hey, David.
Well, I feel like you specifically love talking about like Focus Features and Searchlight. These are all labels that are very close to our hearts.
Yeah,
I know.
You got me at the right time.
It's all upon us. We'll talk about all 3 of those and what they have in the Oscar race. And after all of that, you'll hear my conversation with Charles Melton, an Emmy nominee this year for his role on Beef. All of that and more coming up. Welcome to the show. All right, Chris, I jumped right over you in the intro because I was so excited to hear David talk. But you too also love Focus Features and Searchlight and Sony Classics, right?
I love it so much. They're my favorites. I love a studio indie label, whatever we want to call it, because I'm just like, they make the good stuff. A lot of times, maybe you guys have experienced this in journalism, but it's like you do this stuff you have to do, and then you do the stuff you like. And sometimes the stuff you have to do is like, I'm aggregating a news story or whatever in the past, right? And then it's like, but I really want to write about...
I have no experience with this at all.
Yeah, I've never
write about X, Y, and Z. And so like this is the studio indie labels are like the X, Y, and Z that you really like. And then you're putting out Spider-Man because you have to, but maybe Spider-Man is good too, so it doesn't matter.
So Sony has to put out Spider-Man, but their true passion is the only living pickpocket in New York.
I mean, speaking for myself, that's how I would run Sony. So yes.
Well, and we're in an interesting position where there's a new one. Warner Brothers announced Clockwork not that long ago. And I mean, I don't know how you announce that while also being in the middle of an acquisition, like what we're supposed to anticipate there. But it'd be very nice if we have 4, Paramount Vantage, good old days, Warner Independent. We're down a few from these. So I'd love to have more of these coming in.
Yeah, I think that they were in the mix for the invite at Sundance. So they've definitely dipped their toe into the, festival buyer's market and all that good stuff, but nothing this season. So,
well, yeah, we'll be skipping them for now, but hopefully we'll have them to look forward to. And I don't know how to divvy these up, but maybe to start with Searchlight, which has, from my count, the fewest titles that we'll be talking about in the Oscar race. Really just 2, but 2 very big ones. And I think at this point, David, you are the most likely of me and Chris to have heard from people who have seen things and heard tell, and you can tell us how much you're allowed to say about any of these. But Wild Horse 9, I will say, that's the Martin McDonagh movie. It's the one that I've been hearing the most of. Like, I heard from someone who had seen it, or I had saw a thing. We saw a trailer so early on. I feel like a lot of us are assuming it's a sure bet in the Oscar race. Is any of that misguided based on what you're hearing, David?
No, it is not. I would say I'm probably embargoed from, what I have maybe seen. But I feel comfortable saying that because Searchlight is clearly really confident in this movie, and quite a few journalists have seen this movie, at least in LA. And I think that there's just a general bullishness around the fact that the movie is really well positioned in an otherwise very thin Venice lineup, for example. Martin McDonagh's Oscar track record of late has been really, really strong. And there's just a lot of different narratives, I think, for the movie to ride and carve out its own lane as a pretty strong player.
Yeah, Chris, after coming off of Banshees of Inisherin, which felt like weirdly slept on despite having gotten all these Oscar nominations, like, does that just put McDonough in this position to launch even further with this one?
That's what it feels like. I mean, the putting out the trailer like right after the Oscars this past year.
It really was like the same week, wasn't it?
Like flag plant you could do. They're obviously incredibly confident in it. I have no reason to believe that it won't be great based on, again, like people we've spoken to, maybe have seen it, maybe not. It looks great. Like Dave was saying, the narratives, there's just so many great narratives in it. John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, Sam Rockwell, McDonough again, right? Like all these people who are either beloved by the Academy or maybe need to be beloved by the Academy. Parker Posey maybe getting an Oscar like it's a wealth of narratives to me. And like,
yeah,
bring it to Venice. And if it's early in Venice, likely then maybe to Telluride, if it could come there like after it premieres at Venice, and then, we'll see if it hits the other festivals. Yeah, it just feels like their number one priority and probably the best bet to get multiple nominations. I mean, like picture, maybe director, screenplay, actor, supporting actor, multiple times over, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, David, have I thrown out you my theory about the Lebowski supporting actors we'll talk about several of them in this
You
conversation.
have not, but I have independently become very, very, very invested in this narrative.
I feel very strongly about it.
I think it could happen. So yeah, that's really exciting. And we're obviously including Julianne Moore as well.
Well, and we were talking about this with Joyce last week about like supporting actor, multiple nominees. And I kind of just realized just now that Martin McDonagh is kind of the reigning king.
He's the guy.
So,
he's the dude.
Yeah, he did it twice. So like that's Buscemi and Malkovich. Again, David, whether or not you can confirm or deny anything.
Buscemi and Rockwell.
Yeah.
And Rockwell is supporting and Malkovich is lead.
I believe, yes.
Interesting. Okay, this is
that would be my impression. David, you don't have that would be my impression too. As a layman, I've not seen it, but just based on the trailer, it seems like that.
Yeah,
that would be it. And then you could have the two supporting actresses too, maybe.
And again, with guessing games, are we saying we don't know if it's going to be at Telluride because it wasn't on the TIFF lineup, so we didn't get that as a hint, but we know it will be in Venice.
Correct.
Yes.
And McDonagh is a pretty, he's the kind of filmmaker who plays very well in Telluride. Searchlight really likes Telluride. They tend to take their movies there. So assuming the scheduling works out, which really is always the thing with Venice, is, you have to be able to get from Italy to Colorado in a matter of hours. Assuming that works out, I think, it's a pretty safe bet.
Well, also thinking about the Middleburg Film Festival, where David, you and I went last year, like those regional festivals where movies can just play over and over and over again. And it seems like McDonagh movies play there well, and it's like this one might be a good candidate for that too.
Yes, Searchlight, I believe, won that festival with Rental Family. Is that right?
Wow, that's good lore pickup.
I think that they did. Well, I was thinking, obviously, preparing for this conversation, last year was a rough year for Searchlight. They did not have anything break through, and they kind of tried to play everywhere across the festivals and over the fall. So I wonder if part of that Wild Horse 9 really, really early launch, because, having been in that first look game, I can't remember running a first look as early as our lovely friend and former colleague Rebecca Ford did right before the trailer. Like, that was a really early launch. And I do think it was maybe just a clean slate, great movie, here we go. This year is behind us.
Yeah. I mean, The Testament of Anne Lee did premiere at Venice, but Searchlight didn't have it until fairly late in the game. And it feels like kind of a classic example we think of now of the early mover advantage. Chris and I, you and I talk about this all the time. And Wild Horse Night is not the same as Project Hail Mary in terms of like getting out there really early, but it does seem like that Venice premiere, if you know you got a strong movie, can only benefit you from there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I mean, on the opposite side of then, I guess, Behemoth, as minutes before or minutes into this recording, announced that it's going to be the centerpiece premiere at the New York Film Festival. And I'm looking at the email now. I don't know if October 2nd. So that will be the date for it, which is not late in the grand scheme of things, but is, getting past the Venice, TIFF, Telluride corridor. I don't know if any of us really expected this. Like, world premieres at New York Film Festival had become more rare in recent years. Is this just like a Composers Lincoln Center boom kind of thing? I know it's an LA movie. Like, David, does this make sense to you as a premiere for it?
I'm thinking about it. It's interesting.
Okay.
I mean,
we're still processing this news.
Definitely. I think it shot fairly recently, so that could have something to do with it. They did have Is This Thing On as a New York premiere. Searchlight did last year. I like that movie a lot.
Deserves better. It
just did not go anywhere. That was, though, I think because, Bradley Cooper was racing to finish that movie, and it was not done in time for the early fall festivals. So I don't know. I think there's so much affection for Tony Gilroy coming off of Andor, and the cast, led by Pedro Pascal, people like Olivia Wilde in the movie. I remain really, really excited for it and hopeful, but it's not where I would have expected that movie to launch.
Yeah. Chris, is it a good zag?
I guess so. I mean, I think it's definitely, it feels strategic in terms of getting away from Wild Horse 9 a bit, like we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you're going to have, like, it doesn't make a lot of sense that Behemoth let's just say Wild Horse 9 does go to Telluride. It doesn't make a lot of sense that Behemoth would also go to Telluride to me if you're going to have the two from the same studio there and kind of competing and maybe in the same categories where it's competing.
Studios bring multiple movies to Telluride all the time, though.
True, but I guess, like, in terms of, like, if the big play for this is, like, Pedro Pascal, Best Actor, versus, like, John Malkovich, Best Actor, I don't know. It feels like they do have to figure out a little bit of a balance and what will work. So I think having the data points of Wild Horse 9 already going into New York with Behemoth and then seeing how it pivots off of that is good. If it also feels a little, you could see, like, based on, I don't know what New York has been doing lately in those centerpiece screenings or whatever. I'm like, it does feel kind of interesting, I guess. I don't know. Like, last year was Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, which is Jim Jarmusch. Year before was The Room Next Door. That had been in Venice,
though,
right?
I think. Yeah, so not world premieres. For
None of these are world premieres. Priscilla was Sofia Coppola in 23. All the Beauty and the Bloodshed in the centerpiece spot. Power of the Dog. Nomadland in 2020, which doesn't really count. Marriage Story, which was not a premiere. Roma, not a premiere. Wonderstruck, Todd Haynes, maybe. Was that at Venice or was that, I'm not sure.
Oh, boy.
That may have been a premiere.
Yeah.
20th Century Women before that. Steve Jobs, and Inherent Vice, which I think was the premiere in 2014, if you go back like the last decade or so. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting spot. Those are good movies, not always hitting with the Oscars, maybe hitting in different ways. I mean, trying to read the tea leaves off of that. But Tony Gilroy does, even though I'm sure the movie's very LA, it seems, he does feel like New York coded just because of Michael Clayton, even though that's not really true. And I wonder if he'll be able to play into
he
that.
Feels
and like kind of like make it work.
Coded to me because of Andor.
Sure.
He can travel the galaxy.
Thank you, Katey.
Yes.
Do we have any sense? So the trailer came out. We have trailers for both of these, which is nice. And I know I floated the theory, like partly unjust, but who knows? So like Olivia Wilde gets a supporting actress nomination and a best director nomination for The Invite. Who knows? I mean, she does pop in that trailer, but have we heard any scuttlebutt about who else besides Pedro Pascal would be a play for this movie?
I've heard good word on Olivia Wilde, which is not shocking.
She's having
a hell of a year. She's also amazing in the Greg Araki movie.
Yeah. Man, Olivia Wilde and Anne Hathaway both having a good year. There's something here. Like maybe this is just me and my like women in their 40s. Like we're doing it.
Some
guys.
sort of cultural reckoning too.
We've all escaped from the 2000s intact and we figured it out. Okay, so it seems like we all agree Searchlight is very likely to have a better year than they did last year for many reasons.
Yeah, definitely Best Picture. I mean, definitely at least one Best Picture nomination, right, for Wild Horse 9. And then we'll see how Behemoth plays. Multiple acting potential, director as well. We'll see. So I'm excited. Good for them.
All right, well then let's ask that same question of Sony Classics, which has like a pretty substantial slate. But so there's Bunker, which we don't know a lot about. That's the Florian Zeller movie with Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem that's going to it's world premiering at Venice, right?
That's right. And I believe it's going to TIFF as well. And
we don't know anyone who has seen it or who can admit that they have seen it.
I know some, people on the studio industry side who saw it because it did pre-screen pretty aggressively to find a buyer and ultimately did. I think Sony Classics acquired it, if not last month, earlier this month. And I've heard it's like a really strong acting showcase. I don't think it's going to be the father, but I don't think it's going to be the son either. So that is an enormous
the twin poles.
Yeah, an enormous middle ground, and we shall see what that means. But yeah, I have heard from a couple people who've seen it.
Because Penelope Cruz is also having a hell of a year. She's got The Invite out there, and La Bola Negra is coming around the bend, and then Javier Bardem's The Beloved. I know it's on a festival lineup. I can't remember if it's coming out this year. That was his big Cannes movie where he's a lead actor. So just an interesting year for both of them to see what pops. But to me, the most interesting Sony Classics title is The Only Living Pickpocket in New York, which premiered at Sundance. I did not. Did any of us see it as part of Sundance this year?
No, I'm dying to see it. I'm so glad I missed it.
Show us the movie.
We are all, I've asked to see it. But again, to get back to our Lebowski guys, this is John Turturro in a lead role. The Sundance buzz is so hard now. And I don't know if you guys have encountered this too. Like there's a movie that people really like, and then you feel like, oh, that movie didn't really pop. And then it can swoop right back around and get attention once more people see it. And I don't know if that's a travel to Sundance thing, but it did feel like this got exactly as much energy as it needed at Sundance to now go play every single fall festival and do Blue Moon. Basically just do the Blue Moon playbook all over again. Can they do it?
The weird thing about this movie is that it premiered really late at Sundance. And so, a lot of people in our world who normally would have seen a movie like this did not see it. But I remember reading the reactions and just being like, oh, this narrative is painfully clear for Turturro, and I'm already far too invested. Barton Fink is one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm very, I think John Turturro is one of our more overdue actors for this kind of, moment. It feels like the Blue Moon playbook is exactly where we should be going with this, which is to say, I think Telluride, I don't know if it's going to Telluride. I actually have no idea. That feels like a really good potential place for it, and for Turturro to start, just getting out there, being charming, talking about the Knicks and whatever else he wants to talk about. That can only help him.
I didn't give him enough credit for the Knicks bump. I was talking about Chalamet and the Knicks bump, but Turturro is right there. It is listed as a Canadian premiere in the TIFF lineup, so I think Telluride is a very strong guess for that one.
Well, because it was at Sundance, so it doesn't really.
We don't know.
Right.
It's hard to know.
They don't always take Sundance movies, but I think they would probably, based on history, I would say like this has a very strong potential to be a Telluride. Just
it seems like it would play very well.
Things.
Well, I mean, for me, that's where Ethan Hawke happened. I mean, when Blue Moon premiered in Berlin, I think Andrew Scott won an award out of Berlin, and there wasn't that much chatter about the movie or Ethan Hawke. And then when people started seeing it in Telluride, that was one of the performances I heard the most about on the ground. Another good example of a Sundance to Telluride relaunch is Rose Byrne, because If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. I was a huge fan of that movie. Was not sure about how that Oscar narrative would go, and then it just really took off from there. So it's a really important kind of second phase for movies that premiered at the beginning of the year.
Ethan Hawke had the Telluride tribute too, which I imagine would be certainly on the table for Turturro. It seems like obviously like an ideal thing to go through his like great movies and have him sitting up on stage with maybe you, David, or Nicole Sperling, whoever's there, and doing a nice, chat about their career, Rebecca Keegan or whatever it's going to be, which is what I saw Ethan Hawke doing, and it was great.
You're just painting such a vivid image here.
It was so much fun.
Right now. That's how it goes.
And like I was like, this is great. I feel like as crowded as Best Actor is, based on Turturro's, I think, affection in the industry, you saw that even when he was nominated for Severance for an Emmy Award, like people really love him. I think they have such an affection for him, and like he's never been nominated, so that's such an easy kind of like narrative to hang your hat on. That plus Sony Classics being like actually incredibly good at this just makes it feels like no matter how crowded Best Actor is, I think you have to have Turturro on your 5 because of that. So I'm very excited for this movie. It sounds like something I would love. I love John Turturro. So like, yes, let's get him an Oscar nomination and several tributes along the way. Middleburg, I'm sure, any of these things, right? Just he'll be everywhere.
All those East Coast. He doesn't have to leave New York. He can just go to Hamptons.
Hamptons, New York Film. How does this not play New York Film Festival, right? When they do their lineup, it just feels
truly.
like it's got to be like all
title.
of these places. They've got to do all of these things. Like I'm just like, yes, let's do it. So
yeah, this sounds great to me. I mean, they've got Sony Classics has a couple other titles coming in the fall. They picked up Hachan Shake Your Booty at Sundance, which I did see. It is a lovely movie. I don't know if I totally see the Sony Classics strategy on that one. And they had the Almodovar movie that played at Cannes. I did not see it at Cannes. David, did you see Bitter Christmas at Cannes? Okay. And I don't think that's going to pop, or no one expects it to.
Yeah, I think it's for people who love Almodovar, like a fascinating kind of key text. I don't think it's his most successful movie over the last decade by any means. And I don't think it's a movie that would go any significant awards distance.
Well, then it's the Turturro show plus the Bardem Cruz household TBD. That's an interesting lineup for our friends at Sony Classics. But I do think the most interesting lineup and I have no idea how they're going to do this award has to go to Focus for this year. Because who in the world would have thought that Focus would have the highest grossing movie in their history with a spring horror movie that is, I mean, from all signs that we can tell from, I guess, things we know and can't talk about and things that can, like, it's going for it. Like, they are taking Obsession out on the circuit. Like, David, what have you seen from your end of how Focus is really all in on this?
I would say it's been sort of in parallel with the rest of us, which is, okay, this is happening. Okay, this is a phenomenon. Okay, this has never happened in the history of our company. Okay, a lot of people are talking about this performance. And so what I've heard is just them Focus kind of just positioning the movie as they have learned more, as they have gotten more data from viewers and audiences. So yeah, at this point, you can't not give it some sort of run, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the day before we were recording this, we saw that Neon had moved Michelle Williams's movie out of the race, which, like, knowing that the Best Actress field was so thin, it was like, oh, she could have the whole thing to herself. I'm interested in what's happening with that one. We'll do our Neon episode later. But, like, Chris, like, can India Navarette just get in because she's in a movie that everybody really likes?
I think so. I really do believe that. It's a good performance. So having watched the movie finally, which is like embarrassing that I had not watched it until it was streaming here on Peacock, but watched the movie, was very excited to do so. And watching the movie, I was like, yeah, you could definitely see a lane for it. She's the best part of the movie by a long shot, I think. And she's the best actor in the movie by a long shot. That's not to disrespect like the other people, but it is like, it's such a low budget film. The acting in it reminded me of like a Mumblecore or Clerks kind of thing where you have like non-actors or first time actors or like kind of like, I don't want to even say like YouTube or whatever, but that's what it feels like, a 90s indie movie. And then you have this actress who is like legitimately good on top of that. And it just feels like she's running laps around the entire movie because she's so good. Now, whether she would be great opposite like Meryl Streep or like Olivia Wilde or any like who knows, but in this movie it's fantastic. So I think you have like a great performance. It's a great discovery narrative, as we've seen like kind of in the past, like that is always a help. And it made so much money. I think now it's like I think she could get in because it's such a weak field. But then does the movie get in for Best Picture? It feels like it'll get a PGA nomination. Maybe it gets in at like Critics' Choice with like 10 nominees or whatever. And like, does it get in at the Golden Globe? So they could get in for picture. And does it get in for original screenplay? Is Curry Barker is like this is obviously kind of really caught on. You have Christopher Nolan saying the movie works like a motherfucker, was what Christopher Nolan said.
I didn't know he swore. Like what?
I didn't either. But I'm like, he loved the movie so much.
Let's source,
yes,
Chris.
David, he did to the Hollywood Reporter. He loved the movie so much he swore. I was like, man. Wow. So I feel like there is at least 3 nominations there that they could conceivably get. I think hers is probably the most likely, but the other 2, depending on how the rest of the season plays out. But yeah, and it's kind of cool because we know Focus is like an incredible studio at mobilizing their Oscar movies. And so putting that apparatus onto a horror movie hit like this, I do think it'll be bigger than like Weapons was last year as like an obvious comp. But I think like Weapons was like Amy Madigan or bust, and this could be like a couple of other nominations. So
yeah. I mean, my biggest question for it is how they have that with Werewolf. Like, Focus as the horror studio in the mix this year is totally fascinating. But I've been so bullish on Werewolf just because Nosferatu did so well with Oscars. If it hadn't been such a late release, I feel like it could have done even more. And Werewolf is coming out on Christmas also, but having Nosferatu have sowed the ground so that I feel like Werewolf can go even further if it's actually really good. Or does Obsession as a known quantity make people think like, no, we have our horror movie already. Werewolf can do its own thing. Because Werewolf has such a crafts bigness to it that could like make Obsession look like more of what it is, which is like a small indie budget thing, and Werewolf is kind of the big deal. Can they do both?
I think they can. You know, Nosferatu obviously got several Oscar nominations and was probably right outside that Best Picture 10. But the way I see the Obsession campaign materializing is I think you can run it as a comedy at the Golden Globes. That is I don't know if that's a hot take.
Good take, David. That's good.
I rewatched. People will be mad, I'm sure.
My husband hadn't seen it, so we watched it again on Peacock. And I was like, oh, this kind of plays like a comedy. So, which is to say that should help it, I think, rack up nominations if they choose that route. And so by the time Werewolf comes out, you're going to see Obsession fully kind of in motion as a contender, I think. Whereas Werewolf, you know, it's a Robert Eggers movie. It's going to be carefully rolled out. I think the way that we saw Nosferatu rolled out too was making sure that fans of that filmmaker and, you know, the way that they like, you know, don't want that movie to be treated as like a fall festival awards thing, which I think is a very considered choice. It's just a different strategy. So we have to see how good it is. We have to see how much money it makes. And the runway is a little bit obviously shorter, but I think it's just really different. I think they're really different categories. And the way Focus works is a campaign is partly developed out of how much money a movie makes. And Obsession has managed to, you know, get its own campaign set up just fine.
The comedy thing is incredible, if that actually does happen, but just sitting here processing that, I'm like, I don't really, off the top of my head, we're already like, it's a weak field. She could win Best Actress Comedy at the Globes. So then you get her up there on stage. like giving a speech, like that alone. Then she gets like a SAG nomination. So I feel like all of this is good for her to get in. Certainly.
Who do you even put? I mean, Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep for Devil Wears Prada
like both
too.
of
Like,
them,
how do
maybe.
you fill out that category?
And that feels very old Globes.
It does.
Very old
It
Globes.
really does. So I mean, we'll see who knows what the categories are and what they run. Is Digger a comedy? Like, who knows? Like,
oh boy,
Certainly could be.
The big question mark of this entire thing. Well, and Werewolf also has, I feel like, competition from Dune and that like December prestige popcorn release, which it didn't. Nosferatu definitely didn't. I can't remember where Dune Part 2 fit in with that, but that's going to be an interesting corridor. Like, can Werewolf do as well? Asking it to do as well as Obsession feels like almost unfair. Like, can it get out from under the Dune shadow? Again, I'm feeling very bullish on it, but it's going to be an interesting and kind of busy Christmas window for that.
yeah.
All right, should we talk about the Andrew Scott business that Focus is also in?
I'm also in that business, by the way.
Well, I mean, we are all card-carrying members, as David, you'll hear in the Who's Next Oscar draft that we did a little while ago. He was my pick, my first pick, I think, for someone who will win an Oscar in the next 10 years, partly due to bullishness about Elsinore, which, again, breaking news as we were recording this, is set for a November 20th release date. It is festival-wise, we think probably going to Telluride and definitely going to Toronto, which I had wondered for a while if it might go to Venice. About Hamlet, it's vaguely European, got a star in it. I don't know if I know why it didn't, but it does feel like a pretty strong festival lineup for it regardless.
I don't know which movies this applies to exactly, but I heard that there were a few movies that are accepted to Venice and were going to go to Venice, but chose Telluride because of the dates, because they wouldn't be able to do both. I don't know if Elsinore is one of them, but I believe it was listed as a Canadian premiere when TIFF announced it, which would indicate it was going to hit both beforehand.
Interesting.
And it is not going to Venice.
You're correct. You're correct about that. I don't know if it applies to this, but it was a Canadian premiere.
That's a good explainer for that.
And
because David, I think you said Hamnet did the same thing last year. It was listed as a Canadian premiere in Toronto, but didn't go to Venice.
And I mean, Focus to me has played the Telluride game better than anybody. They had Conclave, which was the launch of that year. They had Hamnet, which was the launch of last year, both of which were in that top 3 for 2, in Conclave's case, Oscar players in the end. They make that festival really count. And so this feels like a perfect launch for them for that movie.
Yeah. Well, and Andrew Scott has it's not quite the John Turturro thing of being overdue to that extent, but he's been on the horizon on these nominations so many times at this point. It just feels like it's going to have to burst at some point. Blue Moon, I don't really know why he didn't go anywhere alongside Ethan Hawke with that Berlin win, but he just didn't.
He was busy filming all these movies.
I guess so. He's
but it's true, he really
demand.
Didn't do anything because I don't think he could.
Yeah, but it just feels like that is such a strong thing. And again, we talked about this when I had him in our draft, like the Tom Cruise, Matt Damon kind of huge movie star thing is going to be such a dominating force that then the John Turturros and Andrew Scott might just be able to stay locked in place and never move and have the entire season to themselves. It feels like such a strong play for him.
And they've got he's got his own lane. I feel like, we're saying you have the movie stars or the movie stars and they're all going to be fighting it out. Turturro has the old veteran. So does Malkovich kind of, right? So they're both going to be in there. And then Andrew Scott, as we're saying, on the come up, it feels like we've been waiting to get him an Oscar nomination. And this just feels like the perfect movie. This, if it does, let's assume it does go to Telluride. I do think this would be an absolute slam dunk smash at Telluride. The crowd there would it would be like they won the Super Bowl after seeing this, I'd imagine. Just
well,
leaving.
It's going to be so sad.
I know, but I've seen, I remember walking out in a good way. I remember walking out of a movie, Empire of Light, which I'm still waiting to see come out. And the Telluride response from that crowd was thrilled. They were like, this is great, Oscar movie. So I'm like, if this is actually as good as it seems like we're hearing, and it's in that same emotional, old school, 80s vein or whatever, I don't know. I'm just this feels like the best kind of landing spot for it. And then just launch from there. And Andrew Scott. And the only thing I'm wondering now, I have him in for an Oscar. Katey, that was a great pick in the Oscar draft where he could actually win this year maybe. But I also do wonder, is he going to be strong enough to actually pull the movie into Best Picture, which we've is that possible? And I guess we have to see the movie first, but I would not be surprised if the movie's a tearjerker or really gets you really emotionally connected to it if he's able to just pull the whole thing into Best Picture as well.
not to just be like super obvious about it, but it's the Hamnet thing. Like it's about an actor playing Hamlet. We got the first like image. He's looking at that skull. That's what Hamlet does. And it's,
with
it's
blonde hair.
With blonde hair, very early. So he's playing a real actor, a Scottish actor who was dying of AIDS while playing Hamlet in a production. And, not an actor I was familiar with at all, but I think probably British theater people know more about this guy. But it seems like it could do the Hamnet thing if you get to the end and you're really sad, but you also feel really like uplifted and brought into something bigger than yourself. And that is a humongous power to have. As much as I defend Empire of Light, not sure Empire of Light quite had that much going for it.
I didn't dislike Empire of Light.
It was, many people do. It was more like, that's an odd story. Empire of Light.
It was odd.
I think one of the unique aspects of Focus buying this movie is they are pretty commercially minded and conservative with what they buy at festivals. They don't really do what Neon or Mubi certainly do, or even what A24 does. Maybe they're more now in that lane, A24 is. So yeah, I was pretty struck by them buying this. Obviously, they probably had some buying power because of what Obsession pulled off. But I have to think that there's a good amount of expectation for a movie that doesn't have any big box office draws, that doesn't have, this kind of genre scope that would get it, over a certain box office threshold on its own. So yeah, I'm pretty optimistic about whatever this movie is. I've only heard good things. And I'm still so sad that Andrew Scott did not get nominated for All of Us Strangers. So yeah, this is a big one for me. And I think you're totally right, Katey, that you have these like Damon, Gosling, Cruise names in this one corner. And the way the Academy is now is they also like their Ethan Hawke and Blue Moons. So they like the other side too, and they usually have a balance. And this feels like perfectly suited to that other side.
Leonardo DiCaprio gave one of the best performances of his career in the Best Picture winner, and no one ever really thought that I guess I did, but everyone thought it was crazy that he was going to win Best Actor because that was how that was going. I mean, he lost
there
another
at the
giant
end
movie
too.
star.
Yeah.
I know. We always talk ourselves into all kinds of different outcomes on these. So Elsinore is the only Focus movie that we know of for now that is doing festivals at all. I mean, Obsession premiered at TIFF last year. There's reason to believe there could be anniversary things around that. Werewolf, I think we don't think will do anything. But they've got two movies coming out in September and October that I cannot make heads or tails of. There's The Uprising, the Paul Greengrass, Andrew Garfield, what is it? It's a peasant uprising against a king in like the 14th century or something like that.
As someone who likes Andrew Garfield and Paul Greengrass, I know absolutely nothing, and it's fast approaching. I know absolutely nothing about this movie, and that can't be the best sign.
It's so, I'm like, The Lost Bus, like, did a bunch of festivals, got that like visual effects Oscar nomination last year.
Got
like
decent
it wasn't
reviews.
Yeah, it wasn't a total afterthought. I cannot figure out what's going on. Like, why wouldn't The Uprising just go to TIFF and like premiere 2 days later to do the dumb money thing like that? I don't know. Did it cost too much? I have no idea. Maybe it's just terrible.
I don't know. I mean,
okay.
I can't say it's on any of my predictions right now.
We were talking about this with Joyce yesterday, but when you have these movies that have we were talking about this, Joyce, last week, I guess, in the episode we did on the studios.
Recording schedules.
But when you have a movie that's like a big movie with like people who are recognizable that should be in theory on paper something that would be an awards movie. I was talking about Dog Stars previously with Ridley Scott and Jacob Elordi off an Oscar nomination, Margaret Qualley and Josh Brolin. Wow, that should be something, and it's August 28th. Yeah. This being September 11th. I'm just like, it just you don't get the best sign. I remember a few years ago. Do you remember this? Like, Poor Things was scheduled for September 11th.
We'll never forget it. We'll never forget it.
Why is this coming out September 11th? And then they were like, oh, actually, we're going to move it to December. And it was like obviously it's a big, it's good. So we have to move it. That hasn't happened with The Uprising, unfortunately. So maybe next time.
With Poor Things, wasn't it just because of the strikes that they moved it?
I think, I don't know. I think so. Maybe.
Well, it worked out well for everybody. And then the other big Focus mystery is Sense and Sensibility, which is coming out in October. It's got stars in it. It looks decent. I mean, can it be as good as the Ang Lee movie is, I guess, the big question hovering over it. I was surprised it didn't go to Toronto. That felt like something that could really play there. It could still get added after this recording, but it's odd to me that it's skipping it entirely.
It's very strange to me. One thing we were talking about offline, Katey, is this is a really grim year for female-directed movies, for movies about women. We were just talking about the Best Actress race as well. It's just really a sad state of affairs. Like the Venice lineup has one female director in the whole competition. It's pretty grim. And this movie looks good. I've started, they're starting to screen it. I have not seen it, but I've heard good things. I think it's just like squarely let's see how the movie does and go from there situation. I love the Ang Lee movie so much that I feel myself prepared to compare against that, and that is not fair to this movie. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way because that movie is kind of considered a classic of its era, and obviously was a big Oscars player. I think they're just being careful with it. I don't think they want to overplay their hand with it, but as I see it, it has a very clear lane. It has a way in that is really specific to what the movie is. Like, it's directed by Georgia Oakley, who hasn't really been in the conversation before. Daisy Edgar Jones, obviously rising star, who has not been in the conversation before, at least on the Oscar side. A lot of room there.
Yeah, I'm looking up Georgia Oakley. I'm not sure I've seen anything that she has made before. She made Blue Jean, which I have not seen, but I heard good things about. Yeah. I guess I can see them thinking like, oh, there's going to be all these critics who are going to see it in Toronto and say, okay, it's not as good as Ang Lee. Or you could open it in October to a bunch of Gen Z people who maybe have not seen that one and it feels brand new, and like let the audiences decide. Like maybe that does make sense. Avoid us.
You saying that did make me shiver a little bit, but that's more state of the world than state of this movie.
Well, maybe they see this and then they seek out the
I think you're dead on. I think you're dead on.
Version. Yeah,
I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Chris, why won't they let any women make movies in the Oscar race this year? Why'd you make this happen?
It's not my fault, but I would say I do wonder if that this is not the venue because it's not the right studios, but I do wonder if that would make Olivia Wilde more of a likely contender as we get further down the road for director for the invite, just because it did work, people liked it, and that alone, like, you don't want to be like too cynical or craven with the narrative of being like, well, we're going to have no female directors again. It's really like a bleak kind of year. And like David was mentioning Venice, but I mean, like, that is a lane that she could obviously fill. And like, there was a lot of affection for it. And it was really well directed by it's like people really noted that. And I do think whether or not she gets in, who knows, but that could be like a good lane for her as she becomes a double nominee for that and Behemoth, right?
Behemoth. I like the idea of a Best Picture lineup that includes Project Hail Mary, Obsession, The Invite, and The Odyssey as this like early year.
I am currently predicting that. So
that's great. Then that's 4 different studios. Yes, like all these different sizes of movies. Like that's a really healthy way to say like we can represent like hits of different sizes. It would be really great.
I think in the industry, there's still a lot of value placed on a movie like The Invite that premieres at Sundance, does not have distribution. Olivia Wilde has talked about the fight of getting that movie made, of needing to premiere it and see that it worked and put herself out there in that way. And then it does work. And then A24 buys it, and then it actually makes money, and it has this really organic word of mouth success. I feel pretty good about that movie at this point, especially just in the overall scheme of A24's slate. It has a good position.
They almost did it last year, right? It didn't work with Materialist, but with Past Lives it did, and they got that in for Best Picture. And so like they could take these Sundance movies, even though like whatever, and like make it work. I think I'd love to see that. I think that would be good. And then, that makes it even more. There's less spots. These fall movies, then there's only 6 slots left for Best Picture.
I know.
Yeah.
I like the idea of A24 doing like the late June release date for like female directed urban dramedies, the same way like Pixar does mid-June. Like just own that slot. We
it's
all
like
know
Christopher Nolan's date.
Exactly. Everyone just has their little spot on the calendar, and everyone knows what to expect. Well, this made me really excited. I feel like this is good stuff, and we're all in that period of like all of these movies could be great, and some of them we have reason to think could be really great. And I'm excited. Are you ready, David? Are you napping? Are you resting up before this sprint ahead of us?
It feels like summer's already over, sadly.
I know. But
you know what? Maybe in a month and a half, The
And we all get to
Uprising will
hang
be the
out in
best
the fall.
picture frontrunner. So who knows what's going to happen?
And Sense and Sensibility will have a TIFF Gala premiere, and we'll all have that on our face. Well, this is incredibly fun. Thank you for coming back and doing this with us, David. Everyone should go read yourself. Oh, we didn't even talk about your John Leguizamo piece for the Odyssey, which I thought was a very important piece of pre-Oscar campaigning. So
again, very invested. Very invested. Yes.
We all have our faves.
You would not be surprised by who I am really focused on in the Odyssey campaign, because you could focus on like 10 people, and it's those Leguizamos and Mortons and
We're gonna get there. We'll have plenty of time. We'll have so much time to talk about the Odyssey. But in the meantime, those of you listening, stick around. I'll be back in a moment with my conversation with Charles Melton. Every great television format starts with a simple idea. For Subway Takes with Kareem Rama, it's one question. So, what's your take? From celebrities to everyday New Yorkers, Rama turns bold opinions into sharp, funny conversations, creating one of the most distinctive and instantly recognizable formats in television today. Now nominated for the Emmy for Outstanding Short-Form Comedy, Drama, or Variety Series. Watch Subway Takes on YouTube. Television has a new home. Now let's hear my conversation with Emmy nominee Charles Melton. He is part of the second installment of the anthology series Beef. To me, truly one of the best shows that's been on television this year. He plays part of a young and striving couple alongside Kaylee Spaney. They are working at this very fancy Los Angeles country club, and they get caught up in this generational battle with this older millennial couple played by Carey Mulligan and Oscar Isaac. It is very funny and very dark. His character has to really go to some interesting places, especially playing a guy who's been a little bit underestimated his whole life and might be underestimating himself until all of this happens. So we got into how he did that, how he fit into a world as specific as the one of Beef, its vision of Los Angeles as this place where there's very fancy battle going on all around you, and also what doing something like this allows you to do next as you're building a really exciting career the way he has been. We get into all of it, hear it all in my conversation with Emmy nominee, star of Beef, Charles Melton. To rewind really just way back to the beginning of Beef, because it's just been so interesting the way you've talked about meeting with Sonny, the creator of the show, and helping to create your character. What was your first meeting? Like, where were you? What was the conversation? What did you eat? Whatever else. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, we were at a restaurant downtown, and Bing Chen, who's created Gold House, or was one of the founding members of Gold House, put together a dinner. This was during May-December press.
Sure.
And so it was the same year when Beef season 1 was going through the award circuit, celebrating all their success. And he maneuvered his way to sit next to me at dinner, and he ended up pitching the whole series to me and showed me a picture of myself and was like, this is in our writer's room. And I thought, oh, cool. Like, for what? Like, does the character look like me? He goes, no, we're writing for you. So it was a very kind of pinch me moment when a creator, especially with the success that Lee Sung-jin has had, is telling me he's going to write in collaboration of my Korean American experience and pull from that. And so that just lent itself to hours of existential philosophical conversations, which he then excavated to, put on paper and then he writes to essences, which is really great. Which is really
the
exciting.
essence of like who you are or who your character Austin is, or both.
The essence of who I am. And then just like, I think we go through so many different adaptations of ourself through different transitions in life. And we shared those chapters of, his experience and my experience. And then I think that just kind of ended up forming what he wrote on paper for Austin, knowing that I was going to bring something off the page.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've watched that award season process happen where you go to these events and you're, over and over again and you're meeting people and there's a lot of handshaking and a lot of like, oh, we should work together. Or, this is interesting. How was that process for you? Obviously, it's resulted in this incredible collaboration, but I'm guessing a lot of other people are coming at you and saying, do this, do that. You got to make a choice at some point. How did you feel about how that whole process went?
Oh, you mean like when I was doing May December press?
Yeah, just like having all those meetings with people who aren't necessarily pitching you Beef season 2, and you got to figure out like what is the right thing to do.
I mean, I owe so much to Todd Haynes, and just that. I think that press tour for me, that junket. I mean, it was incredible to be in these rooms with these artists who I admire and am inspired by, and I think I'm at a point in my career where I understand, like, as much as you want to work with a filmmaker or a writer, it just has to line up and make sense.
Sure.
You can't just like force it. It has to come naturally. And I feel like I've been pretty lucky with, ever since Todd Haynes, it was then, Alex Garland, and then it was Lee Sung-jin with Beef, and then it was Nick Winding Refn, and then Greg Cuidar, and now it's the Daniels, and then Elijah Bynum, and then going on to what I'm going to do next year. So it's, it's amazing. I feel very fortunate and grateful, and it's amazing when people respond to your work too, So,
do you feel like you get there's a kind of film education in that you're meeting all these people? Not that you like aren't a fan of their work already, but you're just kind of like learning about what influences them. You're watching things that are inspiration for your character. Like what's that learning process like?
100%. Yeah, like that process for me it really is my education when I'm working with these filmmakers. Not only I've seen a couple of Todd Haynes' films before I met him, and then I ended up watching, I watched Safe before I met him, and then Dark Waters, and then I ended up watching Velvet Goldmine, Far From Heaven. But basically, I guess you can say with each filmmaker, I'm kind of this sponge. I want to digest as much as I can. So when I'm working with a filmmaker on a specific project, I'm not just curious in what references or films they want me to watch for the specific role or character. I'm like, just send me the films you love. Because there's so much out there. I kind of, in a way, you're getting to know someone's cinematic language, I guess, no matter how specific or eclectic it is. And for me, I kind of had, like I was exposed to blockbusters my whole life and love movies and franchises. And I didn't know what art house was until I was like 23 or 24. Or you're watching something and it's so profound and you're like, oh, whoa, like this movie, what's this about?
Yeah, and, or like movies that like where you like, I didn't know movies could work that way. Like that's always a huge moment.
Yeah. So it's like really spectacular. And then, you see incredible filmmakers that kind of oscillate both doing, bringing something on a grand scale, but like having those elements of like their art house filmmaking or indie filmmaking. Like it's all one art form, but it's, I kind of I learned from my directors.
So what was
and
the
I
viewing?
learned from my fellow actors,
Yeah. What was the viewing diet for Beef? Like, did you guys all watch something together, or did you assign yourself stuff?
Yeah, we watched a lot. I was late to the party with The Sopranos, and it was incredible. So the element of The Sopranos that Sonny would say, he was like, the show's like 30% Sopranos. Because what's so beautiful about that is like our characters are always hiding something, like in The Sopranos. We as the audience, when we're watching, we know Tony Soprano is hiding something and navigating these circumstances. And it's just like these Beef characters where, Austin, he's constantly navigating, trying to make a decision when there's so much indecision. And his mask is people pleasing and codependency. And what makes him so funny is you see someone unravel with an immense amount of self-doubt in the most absurd circumstances when his heart is in the right place. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. And so that kind of fed into some of my favorite filmmaking. You know, when you think of Parasite or Park Chan-wook's Memories of Murder, there's all these genres that are in a specific film that are blending, where you're scared, or then it's like a murder, and then, you know, it's a psychological thriller, and then there's comedy to it, and there's action to it. So it was like blending all those films. I mean, you know, Handmaiden, Old Boy, Parasite, No Other Choice, um, Amadeus.
Oh, Amadeus is such a good one.
Yeah, Amadeus.
Excellent rivalry movie.
Yeah, there's so many. Amadeus. Gosh,
I'm just kind of jealous of this film festival you got to have.
It was incredible. And see, for me, I hadn't seen Amadeus beforehand, so it's amazing. Kind of I'm just more curious to, for example, Katey, what you watch, what you're drawn to, you know, and, you know, you watch something. I mean, cinema is the most beautiful thing. But yeah, we had a very eclectic, a lot of PTA movies, you know, Magnolia. There's just like a lot of different things. Yeah. It was really great.
I think you said that you met Lee Byung-hun at some point, like at a screening of No Other Choice, or you know, something around that being in there.
Did.
And I love, because like the minute I read that, I was like, oh, No Other Choice fits perfectly into the world of Beef. This like sad, tragicomic capitalism mess.
Totally. And what's so, I was talking with Byung, I just say Byung. I was talking to Byung and Park Chan-wook, and you know, it was funny because they were doing these Q&As, and as an audience, the response was laughter, you know? And someone was asking Byung, they're like, man, like, you know, you're so funny, like comedy, we didn't know, like you had so many comedic chops. And he was like, the process wasn't funny, filming it.
Yeah.
Same thing with Austin. Like, you know, if I took myself out of it, I could see it and like kind of laugh at what was happening. But when it came to the work and being on set, I had to like live in those circumstances, because if I'm playing the joke, there is no joke. You know, there's such a conviction, like with Park Chan-wook, like it's so funny, No Other Choice, because the circumstances like Beef are absurd. And the stakes are so high and there's so much propulsion. Like we can't help as an audience but to laugh. So I think, you know, I've been getting a lot of comments about Ryan Gosling and what he does so well with comedy, and Brad Pitt and Burn After Reading, the Coen brothers, and people referencing that there, you know, and which is a great compliment to have. And I'm really embracing the fact that, like, yeah, Austin's funny, but it didn't feel funny when I was doing it.
In the grand tradition of Ken and Brad Pitt and Burn After Reading, that is a great compliment. Well, and I think you said that you talked about this with Sunny in the beginning, is that Austin's sweetness is so key to this character, you know, just wanting to do the right thing, but being so frozen in that way. And sweetness can be pathetic if it's handled poorly. You can see him as just kind of this loser. I mean, he's kind of a loser, but in this way that it feels very relatable. And just, I wonder if you thought about that part of it, not necessarily the comedy, but just making him feel like a real person who could just be that sincerely, like, good-hearted while doing terrible things.
Totally. That's very sweet. That's very sweet, Katey. There is, I think, when we see like this ultimate sweetness, I mean, with Austin, I mean, I had to just be as truthful as I could be, because, you know, there's an idea of like when you're so sweet, maybe you can be naive because the world isn't that sweet. It's actually bittersweet. Right. And I think there's this optimism, this innate goodness in Austin, which I'm pretty inspired by. And in my life, like, aspired to be kind always. Like, I think there's a difference between being nice and kind with Austin, but Austin is like fighting to be doing both at the same time. You can still be kind and not be in a good mood, but like your actions can, like, you know, speak louder than the niceness. I prefer someone being kind opposed to nice, but Austin is trying to do both.
Sure.
But I think the frustration with Austin, you know, when we're watching someone who's so kind and so good, putting everyone before himself, is like a very vulnerable place for me to be, in this sense of like catering to everything around me, right? And trying to fix so many things. And I think that's what Austin's just constantly trying to do. He's just trying to do the right thing. And he's kind of at this impasse where it's, do I do the good thing for this person, or do I do the right thing for me, which is probably not the good thing for the other person? Like, how do you separate that? And I think that's a part of our own evolution in our own journey of life. Sometimes we learn sooner than later that, you kind of have to make decisions for yourself at times.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't make everyone happy, but there is a sweetness and a kindness that is very familiar to me with Austin. That was maybe who I was. Not that I'm not to think myself as a kind, nice person, but there was more of kind of like this puppy dog, just stronger optimism and light of life,
Well, there's in Austin, it feels like there's a refusal to acknowledge that sometimes you can't make everybody happy. But like you can be doing two what feel like good things, but someone's going to be mad about it. And that just happens. And it's like a learning process in very dramatic ways over the course of the season.
No, 100%. You can't make everybody happy. And sometimes I think, in a way, without getting too heady and into it, that is selfish. Because you're always trying to appease everyone before yourself. And so you're then not living your authentic and true self.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to, and I think that was kind of the place that I lived in. There's a lot of gray with Austin, which is, he's not selfish, but then I had to, diagnose kind of the idea of certain things. Like, I was sending books to Lee Sung-jin about codependency and anxious attachment and like understanding attachment styles and theories and relationships and codependency. And then really looking at identity, like, Austin then too being exposed to his Koreanness, like what effect that would have, on him. And,
I'm just imagining you reading all these books, and then you mentioned your wife earlier. Like you come home at the end of the day and being like, "Oh, my brain's been somewhere else, and now I got to go live my real life after reading all that."
It's interesting. I think for me, I have like a very spiritual way of like, I think like everyone does, like their own way of like working. I kind of I treat it very seriously, like a communion. On the day of communion, it's. When I think about the work, you drink the blood of Christ, you eat the body of Christ. But at the end of the day, and it's very cinematic and very beautiful on communion, but at the end of the day, I know it's grape juice and a cracker,
Yeah.
But then also, there is like healthy separation when I go to work in the process. And what I mean by that is like, you leave as much as you can at work, but the work is constantly moving in you. You can't just like forget about what you're doing when you can't ignore the soreness you're going to feel when you go to a gym and work out. So you're bringing the effects of that with you when you come back home.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like a psychological, mental, spiritual kind of aspect to that with the work, which is like very, exciting. And like, I guess, you kind of contain that the best you can, but I guess you can say that. And then I guess the reason why I'm saying that, other than I feel comfortable and like, whatever, is because my wife, like there's like flashes of Austin that come out in your ordinary life, and things change. Music changes. I really felt like I was Gen Z. I'm not Gen Z. I'm millennial.
I wanted to ask you about this because as an elder millennial, like I felt very attacked by this show and the music choices and everything else. And I know that's intentional. And I wondered where you identify in the spectrum, knowing that you're playing Gen Z, but may not quite be there in your head.
I think I'm both. I think when you think of like certain like textures in the show, which is so incredible with Lee Sung-jin, where, Austin's kind of like the person who like sees the headline of an article or like reads like the paragraph about like, certain attachment styles. And then he uses it like, he uses it as if it's like Bible and other conversations.
He takes it way too far.
Yeah, like that guy who cancels his training session with Austin is talking about late stage capitalism and how they should have grabbed the bag first. And then at the end of that episode of episode one, he's just like, late stage capitalism. It's the system. It's designed to make us feel this way. Like he's almost expressing, he's funneling information that he hasn't even processed himself, which is like sweet, but kind of funny. It's not dumb, but I like, for me, I understand that. Like sometimes I read like a paragraph or the forward of a book, and I'm like, this book is amazing, and I haven't even finished it yet. So there's like elements, like not that extreme as Austin, but and I'm not saying, I'm a zillennial. I heard it. It's Gen Z and millennial. I'm calling myself both.
Yeah, well, I think it was elder millennials. We were basically saying, like, we have Gen X in there, in the blood somewhere, but everyone wants a micro generation, I think. We don't want to be lumped in with everybody else.
But see, I guess like that's like the great thing about the show is because, at the end of the finale, we see kind of the samsara at the end.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like a commentary. It's like Sunny's commentary on with samsara that, no matter the generations, like history repeats itself.
Yeah.
Everything is a circle. Yeah.
I don't remember if it was you or Sunny who said this in an interview, but maybe both. But that the read on Austin and Ashley at the end is that this can be a happy marriage. Like they've repeated the exact cycle that we saw at the beginning and how poorly it turned out for Josh and Lindsay. But there might be happiness there also.
100%. I mean, I think I said a version because people, it's amazing when at the end, when they think of the moment of Austin finally making a decision with conviction, which he has in all season, right? But then the mask beneath the mask then disintegrates and then he's making a decision. And we think we know why, in that taxi cab moment where he decides to go back to Ashley. It's like, oh, someone was, it's interesting to hear people's take on it because I'm like, oh, you're just projecting your answer and your narrative right now. And for me, I mean, it's very human to be tired and to not feel like, staying up late or reading a book. Who says they're not happy? What is happiness? Is happiness always joy, that puppy love dog face? I think that's the beautiful thing with Austin and Ashley too, is you kind of see Austin so in love. And then the trials and struggles of life under the umbrella of capitalism start exposing things and cracking things. And it starts to expose and crack Austin. And he's just trying to do the right thing, even if it's not a good thing for him. And then he finally makes a decision and someone was like, oh, he should have chose Eunice or he chose the easy way out, or he chose the hard way out. And I think it's just, personally, I think they're in love, living like their best life right now.
Yeah, and I think Eunice wanted no part of this. So sparing Eunice from whatever Austin was going to offer was, I think, the right thing to do for her.
Yes.
So you were talking about this earlier. You've got this huge lineup of directors you're working with. You've got a bunch of things coming your way. When you get finished with something like this, a character you've developed in this way, filming a TV show takes a long time. You're in this world. Right. When you come out of it, like, what does it light a fire under you to do something, or does it give you clarity on what you want to do or who you want to be or any of that? Like, what do you take with you from working on something like Beef?
I think it's kind of like all you said and the above. I think I just want to do good work. Personally, I just want to do good work and be a part of great things, even if I'm not in it that much. I'd rather be a part of something great than, be in every frame. I guess, when you develop something, I mean, there's kind of like a evolution that comes with the characters I work with. And it's really a part of me, part of my soul that has the opportunity to exist in this time frame. And I do move on in my life, but it's still like a part of me, the experience of filming, with being with the filmmaker, the writers, the crew, the cast, like in some way, shape, and form, it did kind of refined me in some way, which I really don't know how I really can't articulate on paper. But yeah, everything I've done up until now is a part of me, you know?
And in 20 years, you can look back and be like, oh, that's what it did. Like, you can't see it now.
Yeah. Oh, or I remember that marker in my life. I was, that was the year before I became a father.
Yeah.
Or, they're different markers, and art imitates life, life imitates art. That there's that cliche saying, but I really believe in that. They're all the unreality of the beautiful thing we get to do with art as actors and filmmakers and costume designers, and everything informs our life and vice versa. Like, it is the unreality and reality of our life, or there's a DNA to it.
That does it for today's episode. We'll have more bonus episodes coming up. The Emmy nominees, there are so many of them to talk to. More great stuff coming in that direction. We'll also continue our fall preview series on next week's episode as well. In the meantime, this podcast is edited by Brett Fox and produced by Brett Fox and me. Our theme music is by Dave Gonzalez. Thanks again to our returning guest host, David Canfield. Subscribe to the Prestige Junkie newsletter at theankler.com. Watch this podcast on YouTube if you're not already. You can also subscribe to it on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. We'll see you with many more episodes soon.